All right, so this next step is making a line of best fit. So we're going to be looking at some scatter plots, which again is a graph of plotted points that helps show a relationship between two sets of data. Here's an example of a couple of different types of scatter plots. The scatter plots can show different types of trends, different types of relationships, and we're going to be talking about that some too. This one shows a linear relationship because the data is clumping in a line-like pattern. This middle one would be a non-linear relationship because it has that curved pattern to it. This one again would be a linear, an example of a linear relationship. We're also going to talk about how it can have either a positive or a negative relationship. This one, for instance, shows a negative relationship because as we read our graph from left to right, it's going down. And this one, again, has that nonlinear relationship. And then this one has a positive relationship because looking at the graph from left to right, it is going up. So making a line of best fit is basically saying that we can take a bunch of scattered points and approximate what the pattern is showing us. So again, this is an approximation. It is not exact. So when we're creating a line of best fit, we are creating a line that fits our data pretty well. And there's going to be degrees of, how well it's fitting. Okay. So let's hop into it. So if we take a look at this first set of data, age and children's height, you'll notice that there is some clumping. That as the age increases, the height seems to be increasing. You can see this highlighted region, and that is showing us the relationship or association or correlation. All of those words mean the exact same thing. You'll see association probably the most, or maybe relationship, but you will see correlation as well. And that is just talking about, okay, what direction does this seem to be going in? Does it seem linear? Does it seem nonlinear? Is it a pretty strong relationship? Does it cluster really closely to my line of best fit that we're going to be drawing in here? Okay, all of those things, that's describing a relationship or association. So when we're creating a line of best fit, first thing we want to take into account is this clumping and what direction it's going in. So what I tend to do is I tend to lay my ruler across my points, kind of like this shaded region, to try to cover up as much as I can. If I were to lay my ruler this direction, going this way, it would not cover up very many points. However, laying it this way, it's covering up pretty much everything. So that means that's the direction I want my line of best fit going in. So the next thing after we do that is we then take our ruler and we find the middle of this cluster of points going in that direction. So we want it basically going right through the middle of this highlighted region. So you'll notice that down here we've got our ruler up and we're putting a line right through the center of that data. Notice we're extending it all the way through. So one of the things that people do when they're creating lines of best fit is they don't extend the line all the way through. They just say, oh, here it is. It's kind of going in this direction. Okay. In order for this to be a good line of best fit, you need to make sure that you extend it all the way across. In fact, if this were me, I would extend it even further. I would take it further out this direction and further out this direction, just so we can make some predictions on what's going to happen if people decide to study more or if people decide to study less. Okay. Another thing to keep in mind is that the line should reflect the pattern. So notice this green line right here. This is somebody cutting this data in half. Well, yeah, it's going up. It's showing a positive relationship. It's showing that the more you study, the more your percent is going to increase. But if I lay my ruler here, notice I'm not covering up a whole lot of points. So that line is not going with the pattern of the points. We want it to go more in this same direction as the highlighted area, so then it would cover up a lot of it. Okay, so if we look at what it looks like, there it is. There's the middle of that highlighted region there. Okay, and that's going with the direction of the points. One last thing to consider after making sure it is extended all the way through and going in the direction of the points. The third thing is you need to make sure it's centered between all of your data points. Notice this line right down here. There is only one point below this line. There are lots of points above it, so it is not in the center. It's going in the direction, so it's a nice direction, but it's not in the center of the points. So what we would need to do is kind of push that line up just a little bit to make it go through the center. Okay, so now because this line is going in that upward direction and the points are pretty close to it, clustered pretty close to it, we would say that this is a strong positive association. And it's linear because, of course, it is we're putting a line through it. If we can't put a line through it, we can't call it linear. Okay, so this line is describing approximately what's going to happen as people increase their amount of study. All right, so just a couple of reminders because now you're going to put this to the test, see what you've learned. Your line of best fit should extend across the graph. It should reflect the pattern of the graph, and it should be centered between the data points. So what you need to do now is you need to pick which of these graphs you believe would be the best line of best fit for this data. So do you think it's A, do you think it's B, or do you think it's C? All right, you should have answered C because again, it is extended all the way through. Notice it's even past those points there. It's going in the direction of the points and it's through the center of it. This one is not going in the direction. This one is, but it's not centered in it. This one is definitely more centered. Okay, so our line of best fit here that we've created is a negative association. We're going down from left to right. So it's a strong linear negative association because those points are pretty clumped close together. So sometimes people think, okay, there's gotta be a line of best fit for everything. And that's not the case. Sometimes there is no association or relationship or correlation. So there would be no line of best fit. Also, if it's curved, you wouldn't make a curve or a line of best fit. You would end up making a curve of best fit. So this particular situation would not show any relationship whatsoever. And so we wouldn't put a line of best fit through it. We would just say there is no relationship or no association. All right, so we've already kind of talked about the different types of association or relationship. Just a couple of reminders. Here are the positive parts of the X and Y axis and the negative portions of the X and Y axis. And those can kind of help us decide, is this a positive relationship or a negative relationship? So if we look at these two examples of the two positive relationships, you'll notice if we look at this portion of our line, both the X values and the Y values along this point are positive. So it's a positive divided by a positive if we are looking at the slope of it, which makes it a positive slope. However, some people will get confused because now down here, we're in the negative portion of both the X and the Y axis. But we have to remember, like when we're finding our slope, we're doing our rise divided by our run. And if our slope is a negative divided by a negative, that makes a positive. So if we have these two negative movements happening here, left and down, a negative divided by a negative is a positive. So that still is that positive upward slope. If you look at the opposite direction, where we have that negative growth, notice we would move to the right and then down. So we'd have a positive movement and a negative movement, and a positive divided by a negative is a negative. So they're opposite signs there. Same thing here. If I'm moving up and to the left, that's a positive movement, and a negative movement, which gives us that negative slope, which means it's a negative relationship or association. So now what I want you to do is draw where you think the line of best fit should be, and then you're going to take a screenshot of it and attach it to this lesson. There should be a little paper clip down on the bottom where you can attach your screenshot. So go ahead and pause and do that now. All right, now that you've got your line of best fit in there, now I want you to answer this question. What type of association does this line of best fit that you drew show? All right, so here's what you should have come up with. You should have shown that the data is going in this downward direction. So your line of best fit should be going right through the middle of this orange or yellowish coloring. So notice I've got my ruler up there and I'm drawing a line of best fit. So your line of best fit should look pretty much just like that. Obviously, we're not going to have the exact same one, but they should be pretty close. This is showing a negative association or negative relationship or correlation because it's going downward. All right, so last couple things here. We're going to do some describing of association. I'm going to do the first one for you. We've done this a little bit in the past, and so I'm hoping you kind of catch on to this. So if we describe this association, you're noticing that it's going up. Okay, so both values are going up. It's going over to the right and up. Okay, so that means the study time is increasing and the percent is increasing. So describing this association, we would say as the study time increases, the percent is also increasing. So as one of these values increases, the other is increasing. So I want you to go ahead and see if you can come up with a statement to describe what's happening here. Go ahead and type in your answer. So you should have noticed that as the days absent increase, so as this value increases, the percent is decreasing. So this is a negative relationship. Again, it's showing one is positive, one is negative. One is increasing, one is decreasing. Last one. Go ahead and describe this one. All right, in this last one, you should have found as the age increases, the height also increases. All right, great job.